Sure. So do you remember where we stopped last week? Where did we stop last week? Yamikan, you were here. Where did we stop last week? I think we were defining different terms. Remember, terms used in gender. So gender development. So where exactly did we stop? I can't remember where exactly. But I remember we did gender gaps, did we? Gender awareness, gender sensitivity, gender issues, gender issues. Yeah, so let's proceed. Uh, Today we start from gender issues. We are still continuing with defining different terms used in gender development. So gender issues arise when a grievance is felt by one gender, that their needs are not being met or that there is no fair treatment. So that's about gender issue, when one gender feels that their needs are not met, because the needs of men and women, they are different. So when one gender, maybe men, feels that their needs are not met in a society, that's when a gender issue will arise. And if there is no fair treatment between men and women, right now I think we've seen most men complaining about the issue of women empowerment. They say you're always focusing on girls, not boys. That's an issue that needs to be taken into consideration. So a grievance it arises when a grievance is felt by one gender that their needs are not met and that there is no fair treatment. So it refers to social, economic, and cultural disparities and inequalities experienced by individuals based on their gender. So, for example, women on average earn less than men for performing the same job. Another example. So that's when a gender issue arises. You find women complaining that even after doing the same kind of job, they are being paid less. And it happens in many organizations. You find maybe for the same kind of job, men are being paid more than women. So in some regions, girls have less access to education compared to boys in some regions. I think now Malawi is doing better on this, like access to education is equal for everyone. Maybe the issue of empowerment, that's where the gender issue is coming when we talk of empowerment. Like we are empowering girls more than boys. Yeah. Eh. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I've seen so many secondary schools, boarding schools. You find maybe they construct a hostel only for girls, not boys. So that's a gender issue because it means there is no fair treatment for boys and girls. They are all school children. They need fair. They're all students. They need fair treatment. Yeah. So the other term is gender blindness. So it is lack of consideration of the different roles, responsibilities, needs, and opportunities of individuals based on their gender. Lack of consideration. It's like you are blind. You don't know maybe you know or you don't know like the different roles that men and women perform. Because men and women perform different roles, not the same roles. So it is lack of consideration. You are not considering the roles that men and women perform. For example, sometimes you just give an activity or maybe you schedule time forgetting the roles that men and women perform. Sometimes you find maybe it's convenient for men, but not maybe women. Yeah. So it implies treating everyone the same without recognizing that gender differences may require different approaches or solutions. Gender differences men and women have different needs, they have different interests. So if you just treat men and women the same without consideration of their different roles, it means you are gender blind. Even maybe you are trying to solve a problem. Men and women may need different solutions or different approaches to solve their problem because we are different. So this can lead to unintended inequalities or perpetuate gender bias. If you don't recognize the gender differences between men and women, it can lead to inequalities or gender bias. The needs of men and women are different. The interests of men and women are different. So if you want to solve, even when you are implementing a project, you need, like if you are providing solutions to problems faced by men and women, the approaches may be different because generally they are different. So the inability to perceive that there are different gender roles, responsibilities, and gender-based hierarchies. Inability is inability to recognize the different gender roles by men and women. So if you don't recognize these differences in terms of roles, responsibilities, these differences, if you don't recognize them, you just treat them as the same equally. It leads to some issues, inequalities or gender bias. It means you are gender blind. Because if you are gender sensitive, you need to realize that the men and women, they have different needs. They perform different roles. They have different responsibilities. So a lack of recognition that gender is an essential determinant of choices available to one in a society, and consequently, the failure to realize that policies, programs, and projects can have different impacts on men and women. So even when we are implementing projects, you need to remember the impacts that a project can have on in terms of gender, men and women. So who will benefit more than the other when you are implementing projects. So if you fail to realize these differences when you are implementing projects, or maybe you are implementing policies, it leads to some gender issues because maybe one gender will be benefiting more than the other gender. Gender identity refers to subject awareness that one is a member of male or female sex, with the consequence that one conforms culturally determined expectations of appropriate masculine and feminine behavior. It is an individual's felt internal experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth, gender identity. We identify ourselves differently. Sometimes you find you are a man or you are a woman or a man. They'll be pretending or identifying themselves as women. It happens. For girls, for example, we have other girls who identify themselves as boys, the tomboys. That's their gender identity, even though they're girls. Yeah. So it's how you identify yourself, whether you are a male or female, of male or female sex. So with the consequence that one conforms to culturally determined expectations of appropriate masculine or feminine behavior. So it is how people perceive themselves and what they call themselves. I think we've seen people even changing their gender identity. Yeah. So one's gender identity can be male, female, blend of both, neither, nor something else entirely. So you can choose normally, for Malawian culture, we know when you are a male, you identify yourself as a male. As a female, identify yourself as a female. But we have other people like who is this? Who is this guy? What gay? Yeah, it's gender identity. He's trying to identify himself as a woman when he's a man. So that's about gender identity. So even though biologically he's a male, but he's trying to identify himself as female. Yeah. Gender sensitive planning takes into planning that takes into consideration the impact of policies and plans on women and men, and specific to women and men's needs. Gender sensitive planning. When you are making your plans, when you are implementing your policy, or you're coming up with your policy, is it gender sensitive? That's about gender sensitive. When you are making plans, make sure it's gender sensitive. It's addressing the issues of males and females. It is not exacerbating the gender inequality. So you need to take into consideration the impact of policies that we come up with, even the plans that we make, on the needs of men and women, because they are different. So even it starts from planning stage. And for example, implementing gender sensitive curricula that include discussion of gender equality and creating a school environment that challenges gender stereotypes. When you are coming with a school curriculum, if you are gender sensitive, you try to include some discussions on gender equality so that you balance the treatment between men and women, or girls and boys, while challenging the issue of gender stereotypes, because all we want is to discourage the issue of gender stereotypes. That's being gender sensitive, making sure you are incorporating everyone into your planning, the needs of both men and women. So it starts from planning stage. If you are coming up with a plan, maybe for a project, you need to be gender sensitive. Yeah. So gender concerns are disparities which arise from different situations due to one's gender. Arise from different situations due to one's gender. For example, in equitable distribution of resources and benefits. So, generally in most cases, when you talk of inequitable distribution of resources and benefits, usually we say men benefit more from the resources, unlike women. So it raises a gender concern. Even lack of representation of one gender. Maybe there's a meeting, you are making your plans, but there is no presentation of one gender. So who is going to raise their issues if there is no representation of one gender? So it raises some gender concerns, because the aim is for everyone to benefit. These are just examples. I just mentioned these two, like the issue of gender concerns, denial of opportunities. Sometimes you find one gender maybe benefiting than the other, violence, subordination, workload, division of labor, lack of skill capacity, discrimination, unequal pay for similar work. It also raises a gender concern. Unequal pay for similar work. A man and a woman, a boy and a girl performs the same kind of work, but you find maybe the way they are paid, the wages will be different. Gender analysis is a process of looking at the situation to bring into focus the current and potential roles and responsibilities of women, boys, girls, and resources and benefits available to men, women, boys, and girls. You are trying to analyze the issues of gender, looking into the situation to bring into focus the current and potential roles of men and women. Trying to identify, it helps to identify the constraints that hinder full participation of men, women, boys, and girls. You are critically analyzing, maybe you have a plan or a policy. You critically analyze that policy to see if it benefits both men and women. So gender analysis is we are analyzing maybe a project, a policy, so that everyone benefits equally, the roles of men and women. So it identifies the constraints that hinder full participation of men, women, girls, and boys. Involvement in development work. So through that analysis is when you realize the constraints. What hinders the full participation of men and women may be in development work. What hinders full participation of women in development work? Maybe in some paid work. What happens? So you identify through gender analysis. And for example, in rural farming community, assess the roles of men and women in farming activities. You are trying to assess, to critically analyze the roles of men and women in farming activities. That's where you find out the problems that men and women are facing. Because if you talk of farming activities, most of the farming activities are done by women. So it's only through gender analysis that you realize, oh, I think women does most of the farming activities, unlike men. Yeah. So men might primarily handle land preparation and marketing. But women may focus on planting, weeding, post-harvest processing. You see, the men who only maybe handle land preparation and marketing. And usually when it comes to marketing, even if a man was not taking part in the farming activity, when it comes to marketing, you find the men are there because they want to take hold of the income, the money after the sales. So gender analysis will help you to identify such problems. It also helps to identify who has access to resources like land, credits, trainings. When you try to assess who have more access to resources. So through gender analysis, you may realize maybe men have more access to resources than women, or maybe credit facilities are available or accessible to men than women. So it's through gender analysis that you realize all these constraints or problems. Why are women not participating in certain activities? So that's about gender analysis. Gender mainstreaming is a process of integrating gender equality across the board in all program activities in order to promote equality for women, men, boys, and girls in all development work. Integration of gender equality in all program activities. You are integrating the issues of gender. I think these days there's more of gender mainstream almost in all activities, trying to see who is benefiting more. Is it fair for everyone? Is everyone benefiting from the maybe development activity? So by integrating the issues of gender, that's gender mainstreaming. So mainstreaming strategies call for the introduction of gender analysis and planning in all activities. So for you to integrate the issues of gender equality, it means it also works with gender analysis. Through analysis is when you realize, no, I think this plan is not working. It's men benefiting more than women. So we need to integrate the issues of gender equality, so that maybe both men and women will benefit. So it's through gender analysis you identify such issues so that it helps you to mainstream in the different activities, so that there'll be it helps to promote equality for men and women. For example, review educational materials to ensure they do not reinforce gender stereotypes and include content that promotes gender equality. So through gender analysis, maybe you realize that the course materials or the educational materials, maybe they are promoting gender stereotypes. It means you need to mainstream the issues of gender so that it helps to promote gender equality for everyone. So gender, these days in almost each and every activity, you try to mainstream the issues of gender, incorporating the issues of gender. Men and women benefiting the same. If not, you need to incorporate, to integrate such issues. Even in agricultural activities, development activities, who is benefiting more between men and women? If it's more men benefiting, you need to integrate such issues, to incorporate the issues of gender equality, so that there'll be equal treatment for men and women, boys and girls. Gender institutionalization. Maybe so far if there is a question or there is a term you do not understand so far. Any question? Are you okay, you guys? Yeah. So gender institutionalization is the process whereby social practices become sufficiently regular and continuous to be described as institutions. Process by which gender practices become sufficiently regular and continuous to be described as institutions. So that is social practices that are regularly and continuously repeated, are sanctioned and maintained by social norms and have a major significance in the social structure. They become like some of the practices, the norms, how we behave become institutionalized. It becomes part of your culture. Maybe because they are repeated. I'll give an example of maybe just wearing a wrapper. I think wearing a wrapper for women when you go to a funeral, I think it's something that has been culturally institutionalized. You cannot go to a funeral without wearing a wrapper as a lady. So, because it is regularly, continuously repeated, they are sanctually maintained by social norms and have a major significance in the social structure. So, some of these social issues or social practices, some of them are reinforced deliberately. Some of them are just done unconsciously. I think even as a person, even without anyone telling you whatever, when you're going to a funeral, for sure you just wear a wrapper and you go to a funeral. If I don't carry a wrapper, I don't think I'll try maybe to borrow from someone. So how are concepts re-institutionalized in every society? There are commonly accepted ways of creating institutions or modifying or abolishing them. Some ways are time consuming and elaborate matters. So one way is through socialization, as we are interacting with people. Some social practices are institutionalized. It just becomes part of your culture, like in the society, no matter what you do, that thing. Or through education and training, it's like you're trying to reinforce or you are doing it cautiously. Some of the cultures are done unconsciously. You are just born, you just watch everyone wearing a wrapper going to the funeral. Some of these things are done unconsciously, but in some cases, you need to do it cautiously, reinforcing it, maybe through education. Like some gender issues, you want some gender issues, some things to change. You do it deliberately, maybe through education, training, through campaigns. You can also institutionalize some cultures. So other commonly accepted ways that work fast and have more instant effects. The other ones, they just happen maybe through campaigns, or as women, you need to do this, as men, you have to do this. In that way, they become institutionalized within the society. You get used to it. Or maybe women, I think there was a time, I remember, when I was in college. Amazunguza azimayo ovala matrauza. I don't know if you remember. Mulilongwe. It has a vuta. Yeah. So they were just trying to say, maybe a woman should not wear trouser, while a man should wear trouser. So the other ways which have acceptable and work faster is through legislation, policy making, and administration. Through policy making, by just coming up with a policy. Like in Malawi, no woman should wear a trouser. When it is reinforced, it's there. I'm sure it will work faster because it will be the government policy. No one should wear trouser. It means no one wear trouser. So this one becomes easier, it's faster by using policies, legislation, coming up with laws to reinforce some of these gender issues. So sometimes you need, they just happen naturally because we are in a society, we are interacting with people, we are watching people, how they conduct themselves as a man or a woman. So we just get used, but sometimes they need to be reinforced. In that way, it works faster. Another tell, yeah. To reindustrialize, it's like what? To reinstitutionalized. Mm. It's like to adopt another curriculum. Like it becomes part of you, it's maintained, you use it like in your day-to-day lives. So it becomes like an institution. Forokoze bwanji manjira ina. Because even some issues of gender, more especially if they are not conducive. Let's say like mm. Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm. Yeah, because for them it has been institutionalized that no one, like no woman, will stand in front of men. So I need to follow. So I think that one is on the second part when we say it through registration, policy making, or administration. It's not just because if it's just the society deciding what we should do. I think that's why we easily change things. Because even now, you find women, previously in the villages, you wouldn't find a woman wearing a trouser. But now it's becoming, it's becoming common. But if you use these other ways of registration, policy making, it becomes easier. So for that one, is something which has been institutionalized. You go there, by all means, you won't have a chance to stand in front of men. What other example can we give? In Dubai, the street is you need to a woman should not wear shorts. Shorts? Shorts, but should wear a modern attire. They should not show the body. Oh, they are Muslims, right? Yeah. So some of the issues of gender, for example, okay, when I remember, I'll come back. Because there are some issues that no matter what, maybe you just need something, they just need campaigns, through campaigns.